What is going on, guys? Gavin here, and today we have graduated from the Earth machines and are taking a look at wind machines. Yes, we are trying to master a new attribute of machine monsters, and this deck, the Speedroids, is incredibly fun to play. It's also incredibly difficult to play. I've never played a combo deck that is this crazy in terms of like having to know the deck like the back of your hand, and just so many little interactions and planning ahead. That's the biggest thing that you have to do when you're trying to play these turns out, because at the end of the day, like one missed level modulation, if you mess up on what level to make a monster with like a red eye dice, you're going to be ending on just like stray monsters and like an unfinished board, which is really bad. So you really do have to think and big brain your turns with this deck, which is why I've pretty much just fallen in love with it and I'm so excited to play it at locals. That being said, let's go ahead and get right into the profile. Okay, to start for the deck profile, we're on triple copies of Wind, the Wind Channeler. This card is really good because it allows you to discard itself and another wind monster from your hand to search your deck for a wind monster with 1500 or less defense. So most of the time that's going to be Terratop, but there's plenty of other search targets if you already have the Terratop in your hand. But basically, Terratop is premium because it allows you to get your play started without using your normal summon. If you don't know what Terratop does, it allows you to special summon itself from your hand if you control no monsters. And when this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand, which is really good because a lot of the times you'll just add like a Takatomborg, which can special summon itself if you control a wind monster. So yeah, you can kind of see where this is going and allows you to access tons of plays just through this card. So you'll gladly go -1 with the win to see this card more often. Then we play triple copies of the Marble Machine. Marble Machine is like one of the normal summons of the deck and basically searches a Speedroid monster on summon. So it can search an extender and kind of act as a play starter that way. Obviously not as good as Terratop, but still pretty good to see. Then we play 2 copies of the Magic Hound. Magic Hound is really good because it allows you to Foolish a Speedroid card when you normal summon this card. So also kind of like an alternative normal summon to the Marble Machine and still a starter as well. Then we play 1 copy of the Double Yo-Yo. Basically this card revives a Speedroid monster when you normal summon it. So it's not like a starter, but it's pretty searchable with the Rubber Band Shooter and can just allow you to kind of extend after you've already gone into the Rubber Band Shooter. You don't need to play it at any more than 1 because, like I said, it's not a starter. Then we play triple copies of Takatomborg. So this card is a fantastic extender that, like I said before, you can special summon this card if you control a wind monster. Also, it tags out into any Speedroid tuner. So if you need to get a Duke or a Dice on the field or in the graveyard, this card is perfect for that. And then we do play 2 copies of Duke. So Duke is really good because it allows you to banish itself from the graveyard to special summon a Speedroid tuner from your hand or graveyard. So yeah, this card allows you to kind of use dice multiple times in a turn, and it's really good. And we play triple copies of Car Turbo, level 3 tuner extender. Really not much else to be said here. It can actually help you OTK also, because if this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it, and I believe banish it and another wind monster from your graveyard, and then all of your monsters will gain 600 attack, so you can just go for game very easily if you go wide on the board. Then we play 2 copies of the Speedroid Red Eye Dice. This card is really good because it allows you to essentially go for any synchro play within the level of 7 that you want, because when this card is summoned, you can target a Speedroid monster you control and change its level between 1 through 6. So yeah, like I said, this card is level 1, so if you target a non-tuner, you can make it so that you could go for any of these lower level synchro monsters up to level 7. So this card is really cool, but also it can be tricky to use because it does require some planning if you want to go for some more complicated plays. Then we play 1 copy of the Fuki Madoshi Piper, also known as Party Horn Kid, I guess for the OCG name. I like the OCG name a lot better. But basically, when this card is summoned, you can reveal cards off the top of your deck equal to the number of other wind monsters you control and then add 1 to your hand. So at worst, I guess it's a draw 1 if you control one other wind monster, but this card can sometimes be used to reveal 3 or 4 cards, and you can kind of dig for what you need. Also, this card is really good to summon off of Baroness because it can like draw you a card, an extra card to start your turn, which is really good. Then we play for the spells triple copies of the Speedroid Wheel, also known as Speedroid Roulette. This card is really insane because you have to discard a card, but then you get to roll a dice and summon Speedroid monsters from your deck, whose levels equal what you rolled on the dice. So you can summon up to 2 with this card. So as long as you roll like higher than a 1, you can get like at least 2 bodies on the board. And this card is really good. Unfortunately, the discard costs can be very annoying sometimes, but also can allow you to just go into the rubber band shooter without eating up your normal summon. Then we play triple copies of Speed Recovery. So this card, like, sometimes it's really great to open, sometimes it's not. Basically, it's like a monster reborn for Speedroids that also has a follow-up effect on your next turn after it's been sent to the graveyard, where you can banish it from the graveyard, then target one Speedroid monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So that effect is insane, and I would play Monster Reborn in this deck, but like I said, sometimes this card doesn't really work as an extender, and that sucks, but other times it's insane. Also, Speed Recovery is not once per turn. Also, this card is not a Speedroid spell, which is a little unfortunate because that means you can't search it off of Cork Blaster. Then for the traps, we just played 2 Speedroid Duplicate. So this card's insane. It's like Dragon Maid Tidying, but for Speedroids, and kind of like an extender in the graveyard as well. So yeah, this card's insane. For the hand traps, we're on 2 copies of Ash. So this card's important to play at 2 because, one, it's just a generically good hand trap, but more importantly, it's something that you need to really cross out a lot of the times because both Win and Speedroid Roulette have -1 on their effects. So it can be somewhat devastating with certain hands if you get hit with an Ash on these cards. So yeah, we really want them to resolve. So playing the cross out plus Ash is pretty important in my opinion. 2 copies of Droll, just because it's a wind hand trap, and Ghost Mourner I felt like wasn't impactful enough because against Flundereeze that card does nothing. Unfortunately, I do think that's going to be popular for a while, at least for the first couple weeks of Bode releasing. So I don't want a card that's just dead in my deck against that deck. So yeah, I'm playing Droll instead. 1 copy of Effect Veiler and then 1 copy of Imperm. Both really just in here for the same reason, because they're just good generic hand traps that are also good crossout targets. 1 copy of Called By for hitting hand traps. Triple copies of Crossout Designator for hitting those important hand traps, and then triple copies of Talents for recovering once we actually get hand trapped. So that's really it for the main deck. I feel like it's pretty balanced out and I like it a lot. I'm not like going super heavy on the extenders. I know there's like some other wind extenders like Red-Haired Hasty Horse and Primitive Butterfly, but I wasn't too much of a huge fan. I'd rather have a little bit more defensive options in my deck. So yeah, that's the theory behind the main deck. Let's go ahead and get into the extra deck. When we play 1 copy of the Rubber Band Shooter, this card's really good because it gives you like a pseudo search by banishing a Wind Synchro monster from your extra deck. Then you reveal 2 Speedroid monsters from your main deck, and then their level has to be equal to the level of the monster that you just banished. And then your opponent randomly adds 1 to your hand. So I guess have fun explaining that to your opponent if they don't know what this card already does. But also this card does give you an additional normal summon, which is good because it allows you to get more of your non-tuners on the board. So assuming you probably will want to search for one of these, you can normal summon it and get the effect. A lot of the times what you'll do is you'll banish a level 7 and go for double Yo-Yo and Terra Top if you don't already have access to those cards. And then either one that you get, like, it doesn't really matter. Obviously the better one to get is Yo-Yo because the Terra Top will be in the graveyard and then you can get more monsters on the board. But in the worst case, you just get the Terra Top and then you can normal summon the Terra Top, get the effect, and kind of go off and make a synchro play from there. So this card is really essential, and you also don't like this card to get hand trapped, so Called By or Crossout Designator can be useful for protecting this card. 2 copies of the Cork Blaster. So I was playing this card at 1 before, but I think 2 is really good just for having a follow-up on your next turn. Basically, this card is really easy to make because of Red-Eye Dice, and it allows you to summon back your Synchro materials when you summon this card. Also, it can search you a Speedroid Spell or Trap from your deck, but yeah, this card is it's more important to get the synchro materials all that time because it will allow you to go into a high level synchro play and allows you to make Crystal Clearwing or Baroness like super easily. So yeah, this card is goated in this deck. 1 copy of Martial Metal Marcher. I don't use this card that often, but it can be useful with like Hagoisha or like Crystal Wing. It allows you to make the double Crystal Wing play with some hands like really easily. So I guess there's that, but I'm not 100% sold on this card, and I might cut it for like a level 9 synchro, but for now it's kind of like a flex spot in the extra deck, I guess. 1 copy of the Shinbara and 1 copy of Hagoishas for the level 5. So I played both of these because Shunbar is really good for going second, especially with something like a car turbo. It can allow you to OTK quite easily because it can attack twice and it can get pretty good amount of attack on this thing. And then Hogoisha is really good going first because it allows you to recur itself if you control a Speedroid monster. So this card allows you easy access to the double Crystal Wing play, and it's just really good to have in your graveyard. If you can make this card before going into Rubber Band Shooter, you probably should because it will give you some follow-up. And yeah, this card's amazing. One copy of Raptite. Basically, you can play this or start as Charge Warrior, but I kind of like this one because it has a more disruptive effect on my opponent's turn as opposed to Charge Warrior, which, while it does get you a draw, it's not disrupting your opponent at all. So I think that Raptite's fine, but also sometimes you're just banishing this card anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah. One copy of the Wind Pegasus. This card is amazing. If you can make it before going into the Baroness, it's really good because it's a nice little disruption that can actually help you out certain cards, like, for example, Shaddoll Window, right? Against Dogmatica, you can send this card to the graveyard off of the Maximus, and then it can help you out Window, which would otherwise be annoying, but this card is just really easy to make and fits right into the deck, and I love it. One copy of Clearwing Fast Dragon and one copy of Clearwing Dragon, or Clearwing Synchro Dragon. These cards are pretty mediocre, but most of the time you're just using them to make the Crystal Clearwing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, these cards, a lot of the time you're just banishing one of them for the level 7 for the Rubber Band Shooter to go for a double Yo-Yo and a Terratop, because that's a pretty staple play that you go for if you didn't already have access to one of these in your opening hand. And then 2 copies of Crystal Wing, because having 2 is really important, and I was only playing 1 before, but the second one definitely comes up a lot, and it's pretty easy to make a double Crystal Wing. It's like a floor for your end board. Like, it's not difficult at all. So yeah, this card is really good for just putting up 2 monster negates and being kind of problematic for your opponent. 1 copy of Kite Drake, because this card is really good going second, allows you to blow up your opponent's entire board, which is like 99% of the time what you're going to go for, because if you go for the effect negate, it's kind of weird because you probably won't be getting to this card if you need to negate your opponent's board. Like, if your opponent has that many negates that you're like very scared, you're probably not even getting to this card in the first place. So it's really good when you pair it up with Dark Ruler when you know you're going second. So yeah, I like this card a lot. 1 copy of Baroness, and then 1 copy of Clearwing, or Crystal Clearwing, for the level 10s. Basically, these cards are nuts, and Baroness is just really good for recurring resources. Can recur you Terratops or Party Horn Kids, and just allows you to just get so much advantage with the negate, the recycle effect, and the pop. And then lastly, the Crystal Clearwing for being just a really good generic spell negate, and allows you to actually make itself unaffected by monster effects. So this card is a lot better at surviving than Baroness, because a lot of the times after your opponent plays through your Baroness, it just gets destroyed, but this card will probably stick around for your next turn. And even if it doesn't, it also gives you a follow-up, because if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 wind monster from your deck to your hand, which is insane because, yeah, having follow-up is really important. So that's it for the extra deck. Let's go ahead and breeze through the side deck real quick. For the side deck, we're on triple copies of Dark Ruler for a going second blowout, 1 copy of Duster for blowing out back row decks, 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone for single target back row banishing, 2 copies of Evenly Matched. Now that King of the Sky Prison is a card, you can probably expect that some back row decks will be playing that card, and this card kind of just doesn't really care about that card. Also, it can punish boards that go wide on monsters and spells and traps, so that's pretty cool as well. 2 copies of Lightning Storm for blowing out back row decks as well, or hitting those monster link heavy decks like Tri Brigade, whatnot. That's pretty good against them. 2 copies of Godarla for being a wind and also just getting over whatever monster we need to, and then triple copies of Nibiru for 1 being a cross out target and 2 just being generically good against combo decks. You can definitely bet that your opponents will be siding this card in against you in games 2 and 3, so I would at least recommend siding in 1. So that is going to be the end of the video, guys. If you do want to see a test hand or like gameplay of this deck, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you guys think. I'm always open to feedback. But if you did make it this far in the video, guys, I do appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and with that, I am going to leave you with a peace out. Have a nice day. Goodbye.